Now let's begin. The emergency room lights carved harsh shadows across Hector Peck's face as he stood in the doorway of his daughter's hospital room. Sarah lay motionless in the bed, tubes and wires connecting her small frame to machines that beeped a steady rhythm. At 14, she should have been home practicing piano or complaining about algebra homework. Instead, her face was a landscape of bruises, her left arm in a cast, 3 cracked ribs wrapped tight beneath the hospital gown. Kate sat beside the bed, gripping Sarah's hand. His wife's eyes were red and swollen, her voice hoarse from crying. They'd been here for 6 hours since the call came. Sarah had been leaving drama club practice when it happened. The security footage showed a black Mercedes pulling up beside her. 3 figures emerged. The beating lasted 90 seconds before they sped away. Mr. Peck, a police detective, entered, badge clipped to his belt. Detective Randy Camacho, mid-40s, with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much. Can we talk outside? Hector followed him into the corridor. 15 years ago, he would have been wearing different clothes, carrying different identification, operating in countries most Americans couldn't find on a map. He'd done things for his country that would never appear in any file, never be discussed in any hearing. The transition to civilian life, selling insurance, coaching Little League, attending PDA meetings, had been harder than any mission briefing suggested it would be. We've reviewed the footage, Camacho said, pulling out a tablet. 3 suspects. We identified the vehicle, registered to Marshall McCoy. His son Justin was one of the attackers. Hector's jaw tightened. Marshall McCoy, his father-in-law's business partner. The men had built Gonzalez McCoy Development together over 20 years, turning desert land outside Phoenix into profitable subdivisions. Charles Gonzalez never stopped talking about Marshall at family dinners, his vision, his connections, his contributions to the company. And Hector asked. Camacho shifted uncomfortably. The other 2 suspects are minors. Justin McCoy just turned 18 last month. But here's the thing. The footage is grainy. We can't make a positive ID that would hold up in court. The license plate is partially obscured. McCoy's lawyer already reached out. The kid claims he was home all evening. His parents back up the alibi. You're telling me nothing happens to him. I'm telling you we don't have enough evidence for an arrest. Not yet. We're still investigating. Not enough evidence. Hector repeated the words slowly. My daughter's in intensive care with a punctured lung, and you don't have enough evidence. Mr. Peck, I understand your frustration. Do you have children, detective? Camacho hesitated. 2 daughters. Then you understand exactly what I'm thinking right now. Hector turned back towards Sarah's room. Thanks for your time. Mr. Peck, let's do our job. Don't do anything you'll regret. Hector didn't respond. He'd spent years doing things most people would regret, in places where regret was a luxury no one could afford. Charles Gonzalez arrived an hour later, filling the hospital corridor with his presence. At 63, he still carried himself like the former college linebacker he'd been, though his bulk had shifted from muscle to mass. His wife, Laura Gonzalez, Kate's mother, followed behind him, already dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Katie. Charles wrapped his daughter in a hug. How is she? Stable, Kate said. They're watching for brain swelling. The next 24 hours are critical. Laura moved to Sarah's bedside, placing a hand on her granddaughter's forehead. Charles turned to Hector, his expression shifting from concern to something more guarded. The police been by yet? Just left, Hector said. Not enough evidence for an arrest. Charles exhaled slowly. Look, Hector, I know you're upset, but we need to be smart about this. Marshall called me. He's devastated. Says Justin wasn't involved. The car was registered to him, which he reported stolen 2 days ago. I saw the police report myself. Charles lowered his voice. Marshall's my partner. We've built everything together. I can't just accuse his son without proof. Sarah is your granddaughter. Don't you dare question what she means to me. Charles's face reddened. I'm trying to handle this carefully. Marshall's connected, sits on the governor's business council, knows every judge in Maricopa County. If we go after Justin without solid evidence, it could blow up in our faces. Worse, it could destroy the company your wife depends on for her livelihood. Hector studied his father-in-law. 20 years in covert operations had taught him to read people, their tells, their priorities, their breaking points. Charles Gonzalez was scared, but not for Sarah. He was scared of losing what he'd built. "So we do nothing," Hector said quietly. "I'm working on it. Give me time to talk to Marshall, figure out what really happened. Maybe the boys can work something out privately, apologize, cover medical expenses." "Get out." Charles blinked. "What?" "Get out of this room. Now." "Hector," Kate started. "Your father just suggested our daughter's assault is a business problem to be negotiated." Hector's voice remained calm, controlled. "I want him gone." Charles's face darkened. "You're making a mistake. Marshall McCoy is protected. You can't touch them. Hell, you probably couldn't touch them even if you had evidence. That's how this world works." "Dad, please," Kate said. "Not now." Charles held Hector's gaze for a long moment, then turned to his wife. "Laura, let's go. We'll come back when everyone's calmer." After they left, Kate sat down heavily. "He's trying to help in his own way. He's trying to protect his investment. That's not fair. He loves Sarah. Not enough." Hector looked at his daughter, still unconscious, still broken. "Not nearly enough." The hours blurred together. Doctors came and went, their updates cautiously optimistic. Sarah's condition stabilized. The swelling showed no signs of increasing. By morning, they moved her to a regular room. Kate dozed in the chair while Hector stood by the window, watching the sun rise over Phoenix. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Heard about your daughter. Sorry to hear it. If you need anything, call me. Angelo Wiggins." They'd worked together in Afghanistan, then later in Colombia. Angelo had left the agency 5 years before Hector started a private security consulting firm that did work for governments and corporations alike. They'd kept in touch sporadically, trading emails on holidays, the occasional phone call. Hector deleted the message. He didn't need Angelo. Not yet. What he needed was information. His old life had taught him patience. In Kabul, he'd spent 3 months cultivating a source, building trust brick by brick. In Bogota, he'd tracked a target for 7 weeks before making his move. The key was preparation, understanding every angle, every variable. Marshall McCoy had made a mistake thinking connections equaled invincibility. Hector had operated in countries where warlords commanded private armies and corrupt officials could make people disappear with a phone call. Phoenix, Arizona, was a playground by comparison. He just needed to be smart about it. Sarah woke up 3 days later. Her first word was "Dad," and Hector had to step into the hallway to compose himself. The doctors were pleased with her progress, talking about physical therapy, counseling, a long recovery ahead. Sarah remembered everything. The black Mercedes, Justin McCoy's face, his friends holding her down while he kicked her ribs, their laughter as they drove away. Detective Camacho came by again. He interviewed Sarah, took detailed notes, promised to follow up. His eyes said what his words didn't. This case was going nowhere. Kate's sister, Hope Roberts, visited daily, bringing food and magazines and a determination to stay positive that Hector found both admirable and exhausting. Hope was a pediatric nurse at a different hospital, warm and optimistic in a way Kate used to be before years of her father's influence had taught her to see the world through a more cynical lens. "She's strong," Hope told Hector one afternoon while Kate ran home to shower and change. "She'll get through this. I know she will. You're scaring me a little, Hector. That look in your eyes." "What look?" "The one that says you're planning something." Hector managed to smile. "I'm planning to make sure my daughter heals and feels safe again." "That's not what I mean." "I know." He squeezed her shoulder. "Don't worry about me." But Hope's instincts were good. Hector was planning. Every night, when Kate fell asleep in the chair beside Sarah's bed, he stepped outside and made calls. Not to Angelo yet. That would come later. First, he needed information. A former colleague now working private sector in IT ran a background check on Marshall McCoy. Clean on the surface, but interesting details emerged. 3 previous complaints against Gonzalez McCoy Development for safety violations, all settled out of court. A sexual harassment claim from a former secretary, also settled quietly. Marshall's wife Michelle had filed for separation twice in the past decade, both times reconciling within weeks. Justin McCoy's record was more revealing. Sealed juvenile file, but Hector's contact managed to peek inside. Assault charges at 16, dropped when a victim's family suddenly left town. Vandalism at 17, charges dismissed. A pattern of violence, a pattern of consequences evaporating. The kid thought he was untouchable. That was his first mistake. 2 weeks after the attack, Sarah came home. The house felt different, quieter, more fragile. She moved carefully, still hurting, still healing. At night, Hector heard her crying in her room. Charles Gonzalez called Kate daily, but didn't visit. The message was clear. He'd chosen his side, and it wasn't theirs. Marshall says Justin's willing to apologize. Charles told Kate during one call that Hector overheard. Maybe if we all sat down together. No, Hector said, taking the phone from Kate. Tell Marshall we're not interested in his son's apology. You're being stubborn. This could all go away. It already has gone away. For him, but not for us. What's that supposed to mean? It means your granddaughter wakes up screaming. It means she can't walk to the bus stop without panicking. It means the 3 kids who put her in the hospital are walking around free while you worry about your business partnership. Hector, you need to understand the position I'm in. I understand perfectly. Hector's voice was ice. You made your choice. Live with it. He hung up. Kate looked at him, tears in her eyes. He's my father, and Sarah's his granddaughter. He chose Marshall over her. That's not on me. What are you going to do? What I should have done from the beginning? Protect my family. That night, after Kate and Sarah were asleep, Hector went down to the basement. Behind a false panel in the wall was a lockbox he'd installed when they bought the house. Inside, 3 passports under different names, $50,000 in cash, a Glock 19, and a burner phone that had never been activated. He powered up the phone and sent a text to Angelo's encrypted number. Need to talk. Soon. The response came within minutes. Tomorrow. Usual place. The usual place was a diner in Tempe, far enough from Phoenix to avoid familiar faces. Angelo was already in a corner booth when Hector arrived, coffee steaming in front of him. He'd aged well, still lean and sharp-eyed, though his hair had gone gray at the temples. Hector, been a while. They shook hands, and Hector slid into the booth. Angelo pushed a menu across the table. Order something. Makes it look less suspicious. This isn't that kind of meeting. Every meeting is that kind of meeting if you do it right. Angelo smiled, but his eyes were serious. Tell me about your daughter. Hector laid it out. The attack, the police indifference, the father-in-law's betrayal. Angelo listened without interrupting, his expression neutral. So you want him dealt with? Angelo said when Hector finished. The son. Not just the son. The whole family. I want them destroyed. That's a big ask. I'm not asking for charity. I'll pay whatever rate you're charging these days. Angelo shook his head. I don't do wet work anymore, Hector. Too many complications, too much exposure. I run a legitimate business now. Then point me in the right direction. Why? You're perfectly capable of handling this yourself. I'm out of practice. Out of the loop. You're not. Angelo drummed his fingers on the table, thinking. Marshall McCoy. Gonzalez McCoy Development. I've heard the name. They're building that new retail complex near Scottsdale, right? Among other projects. Big contracts. Big money. Lots of moving parts. Angelo leaned back. You want to hurt someone like that? You don't go after them directly. You go after their foundation, their reputation, their money. Make them toxic. Make them vulnerable. I need specifics. I need to think about it. This isn't something you rush. Angelo pulled out his phone. Give me a week. I'll make some calls, see what I can dig up on McCoy's business operations. In the meantime, you need to stay clean. Don't do anything stupid. Don't give them ammunition. 1 week. 1 week. Then we'll talk about options. They parted in the parking lot. Hector drove home, his mind already working through possibilities. Angelo was right. Going after Marshall directly would be suicide. But eroding his empire piece by piece, that was viable. That was sustainable. Sarah was in the living room when he got home, doing physical therapy exercises Hope had shown her. She looked up when he entered, managed a smile. Hey, Dad. Where were you? Just clearing my head. How are you feeling? Better. Still hurts to breathe sometimes. He sat beside her on the couch. That'll get easier. The doctors said everything's healing well. Dad, she hesitated. Are they going to get in trouble? The boys who did this? Hector chose his words carefully. The police are still investigating. But you don't think they will. I think the system doesn't always work the way it should. Sarah nodded slowly. Grandpa called Mom today. She was crying after. What did he say? I don't know. But Mom seems scared. Scared of what? Of you, I think. Of what you might do. Hector pulled his daughter close, careful of her ribs. I would never do anything to hurt this family. You know that, right? I know. But Mom's scared anyway. Kate appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Sarah, honey, can you give us a minute? Sarah squeezed Hector's hand and headed upstairs. Kate waited until her footsteps faded. My father called again. He says Marshall's worried you're going to retaliate somehow. Marshall should be worried. Hector, please. I know you're angry. I'm angry too. But we have to be smart about this. If you do something crazy, if you end up in jail, what happens to Sarah? To me, I'm not going to jail. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. He stood, facing her. Kate, I spent 15 years operating in hostile environments. I know how to handle threats. I know how to protect what matters. This isn't Afghanistan. You can't just make people disappear. Can I? The words hung in the air. Kate's face went pale. What does that mean? It means Marshall McCoy thinks he's untouchable because he knows judges and sits on councils. But I've dealt with people far more dangerous than him. And they're all dead now. Jesus Christ, Hector. Listen to yourself. I'm listening. And what I hear is my daughter crying herself to sleep every night while her attackers walk free. What I hear is your father choosing his business partner over his own granddaughter. What I hear is a system that failed us and a family that abandoned us. So your solution is violence? Is that it? My solution is justice. However it needs to come. Kate's hands were shaking. I married you because you were trying to leave that life behind. You promised me you were done with that world. I was. Until they hurt our daughter. And if you do this, whatever you're planning, and it destroys everything we've built, then we'll build something new. But I won't let them get away with what they did. Kate stared at him for a long moment, then turned and walked upstairs. Hector heard their bedroom door close, heard the lock click into place. He stood alone in the living room, listening to the house settle around him. Somewhere upstairs, Sarah was probably listening too, trying to understand the gulf opening up in her family. But Hector's mind was already elsewhere, already planning. Angelo would call in a week with information. Until then, he needed to do his own reconnaissance. Learn Marshall McCoy's routines, his vulnerabilities, his pressure points. The next morning, Hector started following Marshall McCoy. The businessman kept a predictable schedule. Gym at 6, office by 8, lunch at the country club most days. He drove a silver Lexus, license plate reading GZMCCOY. Arrogant even in his vanity plates. Hector watched from a distance, cataloging details. Marshall's secretary, a woman named Sherry Norton in her 50s, seemed competent but overworked. The office itself was in a steel and glass building in North Scottsdale, shared with several other businesses. Security was minimal. A guard at the front desk who spent most of his time on his phone. Justin McCoy was easier to track. The kid had no concept of discretion, posting his entire life on social media. Parties, cars, clubs. Photos with friends whose names Hector noted. Brian Kane, another rich kid. Gary Riley, whose father owned car dealerships across the state. Michelle McCoy, Marshall's wife, was the most interesting. She kept a low profile, but Hector found her pattern too. Yoga 3 mornings a week at a studio in Paradise Valley. Weekly therapy sessions at an office in Scottsdale. Shopping trips to Kierland Commons, always alone. A woman going through the motions of a life she didn't want. Angelo called on the 6th day. We need to meet. I found something. They met at a different diner this time, south of Phoenix and Chandler. Angelo slid a folder across the table. Marshall McCoy is leveraged to the gills. The Scottsdale project is bleeding money. Cost overruns, permitting issues, contractor disputes. He's got loans from 3 different banks, plus private investors who are getting nervous. How nervous? Nervous enough that if something else went wrong, if public opinion turned against him, if contract got delayed, if his reputation took a hit, The whole thing could collapse. What kind of hit? That's where it gets interesting. Angelo pulled out his phone, showed Hector a news article. Remember the safety violations I mentioned? One of them involved a worker who fell 3 stories. Kid named Darren Christensen. Broke his back, paralyzed from the waist down. Gonzalez McCoy settled for $300,000 and made him sign an NDA. Can we break the NDA? We don't have to. The settlement was civil. But if new evidence emerged, if someone, say, discovered Marshall had falsified safety reports or bribed inspectors, that's criminal. That's jail time. And that would tank his credibility with investors. Hector felt something click into place. You have evidence? Not yet, but I know where to look. McCoy uses a third-party firm for safety inspections, West Tech Compliance. Their reports have been suspiciously consistent across multiple projects. Either McCoy runs the safest construction sites in Arizona, or someone's cooking the books. How do we prove it? Leave that to me. I got contacts who can get into West Tech's servers, pull the real inspection reports versus the ones filed with the city. If there's fraud, we'll find it. How long? 2 weeks. Maybe less if I can expedite. Hector nodded slowly. That handles the business side. What about Justin? Angelo's expression hardened. That's trickier. The kid's technically an adult, but his parents will protect him. Any direct action against him puts you in the crosshairs. I'm not afraid of crosshairs. I know, but you should be smart about it. Angelo leaned forward. What if Justin's actions had consequences that his father couldn't fix? What if his own choices destroyed him? I'm listening. The kid parties. A lot. Uses cocaine, from what my sources tell me. Not just recreational. He's got a habit. Now, possession of coke in Arizona is a felony. If he got caught with enough of it, that's prison time. Real prison, not country club rehab. Marshall would lawyer him out of it. Not if there were aggravating circumstances. Not if, say, he got caught distributing. That's a whole different charge. Much harder to walk away from. Hector thought about it. You're suggesting we set him up. I'm suggesting we give him enough rope to hang himself. Kid's already using. We just need to put him in a position where his usage becomes everyone's problem. Ow! Still working on that. But I got ideas. Angelo closed the folder. In the meantime, you need to maintain appearances. Keep being the concerned father, the insurance salesman, the regular guy. Don't give them any reason to suspect you're planning something. What about my father-in-law, Charles Gonzalez? Angelo shrugged. He's collateral damage. Once Marshall goes down, their partnership craters. Charles loses everything he built, and he'll know it's because he chose the wrong side. I want him to know more than that. I want him to understand exactly what he sacrificed. Revenge is a dish best served cold, Hector. Make him watch his empire crumble, his partner destroyed, his family torn apart. Make him live with the knowledge that he could have prevented all of it if he'd just stood by his granddaughter. They parted ways with a plan forming. Angelo would handle the business investigation and find a way to trap Justin. Hector would maintain his cover, be the dutiful father and husband, wait for the pieces to fall into place. 2 weeks stretched into 3. Sarah's physical wounds healed, but the psychological scars ran deeper. She started seeing a therapist, a woman named Dr. Elena Gardner, who specialized in trauma. The sessions helped, but Sarah was different now. Quieter, more cautious, less willing to trust the world. Kate and Hector's marriage strained under the weight of unspoken tension. They functioned as parents, tag-teaming Sarah's care and recovery, but as partners, they were drifting. Kate knew Hector was planning something, and her silence felt like both acceptance and condemnation. Charles Gonzalez stopped calling altogether. The message was clear. As long as Hector was in the picture, there would be no reconciliation. Then Angelo called. We got it. West Tech has been falsifying safety reports for Gonzalez McCoy for 3 years. I got documentation, emails, original reports, everything. It's enough to trigger a criminal investigation and tank their investor confidence. When do we move? I've already started. Sent anonymous tips to the Arizona Republic and the State Attorney General's office. By Monday, this is going to be front page news. And Justin, that's happening this weekend. Trust me, the news broke on Sunday. Scottsdale development firm faces fraud investigation, screamed the headline. The article detailed allegations of safety violations, falsified reports, and a pattern of negligence spanning multiple construction projects. The state attorney general announced a formal investigation. By Monday morning, 3 investors had pulled out of the Scottsdale project. Marshall McCoy's office released a statement denying all allegations, calling them baseless attacks by competitors. But the damage was done. Local news ran stories about Darren Christensen, the paralyzed worker, interviewing him about the settlement and the conditions that led to his fall. Charles Gonzalez called Kate Tuesday morning, his voice frantic. "Do you know what's happening? The company's falling apart. Our stock price is in free fall. Marshall's being investigated by the Attorney General." "I heard," Kate said. "This is catastrophic. 20 years of work gone. I don't understand how this happened." "Maybe karma," Kate said, and hung up. She looked at Hector, standing in the kitchen doorway. "Was that you? What do you think?" "I think my father's life is collapsing." "Good." "Hector, he made his choice, Kate. He chose Marshall over Sarah. Now he gets to live with the consequences." "And Marshall's wife? His employees? All the people who depend on that company. Should have thought about that before they protected a violent kid." Hector poured himself coffee. "This isn't over yet. That weekend, Justin McCoy was arrested at a house party in Scottsdale. Police found 4 ounces of cocaine in his car, along with scales and small baggies. Clear evidence of distribution. The arrest made the news not because of the quantity, but because of who got caught. The son of Marshall McCoy, already embroiled in scandal, now facing felony drug charges. Marshall's lawyers descended immediately, arguing entrapment, illegal search, contaminated evidence. But the arrest had been clean, probable cause established by an anonymous tip, search warrant properly executed. Justin was looking at 5 to 15 years. Michelle McCoy filed for divorce 3 days later. The court documents were brutal, detailing years of emotional abuse, financial control, and infidelity. She sought full dissolution of assets, custody of their minor daughter. Justin had a 14-year-old sister Hector hadn't known about, and a restraining order against Marshall. The perfect family image Marshall had cultivated shattered overnight. Hector watched it all unfold from his living room, tracking news stories and social media reactions. Marshall McCoy was toxic now. Business partners distancing themselves, contracts evaporating, banks calling in loans. The Scottsdale project was dead. Gonzalez McCoy development was finished. And somewhere in it all, a black Mercedes got reported to police by an anonymous caller who claimed to see it at a chop shop in South Phoenix. When investigators checked, they found evidence the reported theft had been staged. Marshall had filed a false police report to provide his son with an alibi. More charges. More scandal. Charles Gonzalez called one final time. "It was you. All of this. You destroyed Marshall." "I didn't do anything," Hector said calmly. "I'm just an insurance salesman. How could I possibly orchestrate something like this?" "You're not just anything. I looked into your background, Hector. Made some calls. You know what I found? Nothing. 15 years of your life, just blank. No records, no history, nothing. Like you didn't exist. Sounds like you have questions for whoever you hire to do that research. Who are you?" "I'm a father. That's all that matters. Marshall's finished. The company's dead. I've lost everything." "No," Hector said. "You still have your daughter and your granddaughter. You just chose not to value them enough. That's not on me. Please. I'll do anything. Just tell me how to fix this." "You can't. That's the point." Hector's voice was ice. "You laughed when I told you my daughter was in the ICU. You said Marshall was protected. You told me I couldn't touch them. Remember that." Silence. "You'll find out who I am if you ever laugh at my daughter again. But you won't, will you? Because now you understand what happens when you pick the wrong side." Hector hung up. That evening, Sarah came downstairs while Hector was watching the news. Another story about Marshall McCoy's empire collapsing, investors fleeing, criminal charges mounting. "Dad, did you do this?" Hector looked at his daughter, still healing, still carrying the weight of her attack, but stronger now. "Surviving. Would it matter if I did?" Sarah thought about it. "Those boys hurt me. They were going to get away with it. Everyone said so, the police, Grandpa, even Mom. But they didn't get away with it. No, they didn't. Because of you. Because consequences exist, even for people who think they're protected. Sarah sat beside him. I heard Mom talking to Aunt Hope. She's scared of you now. I know. Are you going to hurt anyone else? Only if they hurt my family first. Sarah nodded slowly, processing. Then she hugged him, careful of her still healing ribs. Thank you for protecting me. Always, Sarah. Always. 3 months later, Marshall McCoy pleaded guilty to fraud and filing a false police report. He got 4 years in federal prison. Justin took a plea deal on the drug charges, 7 years, eligible for parole in 5. The civil suit from Darren Christensen's family reopened, this time without an NDA, and settled for $4.2 million. Michelle McCoy moved to California with her daughter, starting fresh with her divorce settlement. She sent Kate a note thanking her for some kindness Kate had shown years ago at a company Christmas party, a moment Kate barely remembered, but Michelle apparently never forgot. Charles Gonzalez declared bankruptcy. The company's assets were liquidated, the Scottsdale project taken over by another developer. Charles moved to a modest house in Glendale, his empire reduced to rubble. He and Laura divorced quietly. Kate spoke to him occasionally, brief conversations that never mentioned Marshall or what had happened. Hector never told Kate everything. She suspected, certainly, but she never asked directly. Perhaps she didn't want to know. Perhaps some truths were better left unspoken. Sarah healed. Slowly, painfully, but she healed. She went back to school, rejoined drama club, started smiling again. The nightmares faded. The fear receded. And when she looked at her father, there was something new in her eyes. Not just love, but understanding. Hector went back to selling insurance, coaching Little League, attending PTA meetings. But now he did it with the quiet certainty that his family was safe. That consequences existed for those who threatened them. That protection sometimes required darkness, and he was willing to embrace that darkness when necessary. One evening, Angelo called. You good, brother? Yeah, we're good. Mission accomplished then. Mission accomplished. You ever need anything else? I won't. But thank you. Anytime, Hector. Anytime. Hector deleted Angelo's contact, powered down the burner phone, and returned it to the lockbox in the basement. The passports, the cash, the gun, all still there waiting, just in case. But for now, they could wait. Sarah called from upstairs, asking if he wanted to watch a movie with her and Kate. Family night, like they used to do before everything changed. Coming, Hector called back. He closed the basement door, locked it, and headed upstairs to his family. The past was behind him. The threats were neutralized. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new routines, new normalcy. But tonight, they would watch movies and eat popcorn and be together. And that was enough.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.